Did this athlete lie when they said they signed their trading cards? Did they commit fraud by not signing these trading cards? That's going to be what we try and break down today, because an athlete, a former prospect, has come out and said he didn't sign his cards when he was a prospect. His dad signed half of them for him. And it's a really good discussion point for us to go back to some of the things we've discussed in the past on how this can actually happen, because based on the response on social media that I'll get to in a second, people seem to be really confused as to what the process actually looks like. And I want to try and clarify it for you guys, because it's not going down the way many people think. It's actually not as much oversight from these trading card companies as one would expect. Now, this relates to a post from Mario Alejandro. We've referenced him many times on the channel, and he talks about Robbie Rowland coming out and saying that his dad signed half of his cards when he was a prospect. I'll play the video for you in a second, but Robbie Rowland, from my understanding, was drafted in the 3rd round, I think in 2010, maybe I'm wrong. I don't think he ever played in the majors, but it's just a really interesting situation, and sort of based on the response from people, there seems to be a lot of confusion around how these trading card companies oversee things like this and actually how it goes down. So I'll play the video for you now, and then I'll come back to you in a second.
Remember that time when I had to sign 2,000 of these within like a month of when I first signed?
Yeah.
And you did like 1,000?
I did.
So now if you go on eBay and look at my cards, if you type in my name, there's some that are your signature.
Oh, I bet.
It's hysterical.
People notice?
So people like see that and they immediately jump to things like fraud. Like, how does this happen? How can, they get away with this? Didn't the trading card company oversee it? Did somebody commit fraud? Is there collusion going on to allow this to happen? Is the guy lying? Now, obviously all those things are up in the air and we need to take his word for it for the time being, but this is not something that's new to the hobby at all. We've seen, lawsuits around this in the past. There's a really famous example of Lionel Messi. There's some Panini cards from a few particular years that, alleged to have been signed by his brother and not him. And again, the same questions then go back to, well, how does this actually happen? And it's a really good thing for us to try and clarify today, because we spoke about it in my videos where we talked about the backdoored baseball cards and some of these other ones that have been stolen from Topps in recent years, because it's not how people think. These trading card companies don't fly employees all around the country, for 90% of their signing sessions, because it becomes too costly. So what they do as part of this process is leverage, typically family members or, contract workers that live in around the cities that they want to get the player to sign in. And what that often means is the person overseeing it isn't maybe taking it as seriously as they should. And when it came to those Topps baseball cards from, a few months ago and also last year, give some context as to why they're being stolen, right? Because these cards become very expensive these days. You're paying somebody, $20 an hour. They've got an incentive there to steal those cards because they can make a heck of a lot more money than what they would do by doing their job. And the same, thing goes to when it comes to these signing sessions, because like I said, these trading card companies, and this is very common knowledge, will more than likely most of the time leverage a family member. And what that family member does is they sign an agreement saying they've oversighted it. They've made sure that the player has signed everything, basically everything you'd expect an agreement in that regard to cover. But what happens, because you're, not going through proper channels and you're leveraging a family member, stuff like this can actually occur. That's sort of why you see instances like this and many examples over the years where people seriously question whether the athlete themselves have signed it. Now, this is a very interesting one, because if this guy is in fact telling the truth, I would imagine that Topps and Panini would be looking into this, because it is essentially fraud. And again, when you read the comments on this page, a lot of people are sort of talking to the fact that fraud occurred and that they should be looked into, but they're looking into it from the lens that the trading card company has done something wrong. And they're implying that the trading card company hasn't watched the session like they should have. There's a very, very high chance, as I mentioned in one of my comments over here, that, more than likely his dad was the one who was meant to be overseeing the signing session. So it's just a really, interesting thing, and one that we need to be keeping front of mind. And I'm curious, how many other autos do you think are out there that have sort of had the same situation as this done to them? And thankfully for one Twitter user, they've gone through and looked at some of these guys, prospect cards, and you can sort of see here there's basically the Topps cards, and each of the 4 autos on these 4 different cards look very, very different. And someone jokingly said that it looks like 4 different people signed them, which is maybe true given what this guy just said, but it's just, a really interesting one and somewhat scary one to think about when you look back on maybe your collection and you're trying to understand how many of these out there that have been signed by other people that these trading card companies don't really know about, which, it's probably a good thing to try and question. I think for the most part, we're safe, especially if the athlete you're talking about on your card is somewhat famous, because you can sort of look at their autos over the years. And I encourage people to sort of do that. I do that myself when I'm looking to buy cards that are somewhat expensive, to make sure that the person that signed it is actually consistent over the years as well, because I don't want to run into that instance of buying a card like those Lionel Messi ones that I alluded to a bit earlier, and have his brother sign them for a couple of years, right? That's not confirmed, but that's where the theory sort of is. But, it sort of is what it is. And that's why, like in the past, they're the same things I've talked about when it comes to in-person autos, buying an in-person auto, doing that research beforehand. I think technically you need to be doing the same thing when it comes to these trading card manufacturers. Now, again, people will blame them when they read that, post from Mario, or they'll watch that video and they'll say, well, Topps and Panini effed up. Like, yeah, they did, but not in the way you think. They've effed up in the fact that they don't treat the process with as much as respect as what they should. In all honesty, they really should be flying people around, especially in 2024 when sports cards cost so much. Now, me being somebody that works in order, doing that is something that I would, be encouraging. It's something that I'd be expecting, given the volume and how expensive cards are these days. But I think we've got a good opportunity here from Fanatics, because given they've got, these exclusive arrangements and they essentially have every license and they've got, the money behind them, and they want to try and be doing all this innovation around the hobby, they have a really good opportunity to have signing sessions with athletes where maybe they fly athletes out, to certain locations in order to get them to sign, and then have the overseeing of the process all be done in one location. Like something like that would be, really powerful. But it comes back to, I guess, is something like that worth investing in for them? Are they actually going to get the benefit of spending that money? Or do they just keep doing what they're doing and just deal with the fact that cards are going to get stolen, as we've seen in the past with these Topps cards, or other people are going to sign the cards in place of those athletes? So yeah, I'm keen to sort of understand what you guys have to say, but it's just a really interesting one, as I do always say. And I thought it'd be good to talk about it again, just based on everything that I've seen, on that, Twitter post from Mario, but then also on Instagram. People are really confused with how the process works. And just to quickly recap, these trading card companies don't oversee everything. They hire family members, they hire agents, they hire contract workers for like 90% of these things, if not more. And that's why you sort of see the crap that you do. So, it is what it is. I just thought it was a pretty funny one to talk to. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If anything else pops off in the next few days, I'll record something else for you guys. But this one I just thought was pretty interesting. So thanks for watching. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.